Yes.
Prologue, Ramayana. Summary of Ramayana by Krishna Dharma. Coursing through the sky in his celestial chariot, Ravana appeared like a blazing comet. His dark body shone with a brilliant aura. From his 10 heads, his reddish eyes darted about, scouring the mountains below. His 20 powerful arms, hanging from his huge frame, looked like 5 hooded serpents. Seated on a throne of gems, he directed his golden chariot by thought alone, and it moved swiftly over the Himalayan range. The demon was out of his conquests. All around him flew thousands of rakshasas, clutching swords, barbed spears, spiked maces, and iron bludgeons. All of those weapons smeared with blood. Some rakshasas had the heads of tigers, some of donkeys, and some of fierce fiends. Others appeared in their natural forms, large blackish bodies, fearful faces, with tall pointed ears and rows of sharp fangs, with the mass of red hair on their heads. They wore iron breastplates studded with gems and were adorned with bright gold earrings and other shining ornaments. Surrounding Ravana, they looked like dark clouds with lightning covering the sun. Ravana wished to defeat in battle even the gods themselves. Wanting to establish his supreme power in the universe, he had gone to the higher planets and conquered hosts of Gandharvas and Yakshas, powerful celestial fighters. Now he was returning from his victorious fight with Kuvera, his own brother and treasure of the gods. That lordly deity had been made to retreat by Ravana, losing to the demon his wonderful chariot, known in all the worlds as the Pushpaka. The fearless Ravana, overlord of all the demons, looked down from the Pushpaka at the forests below. It was a picture of tranquility. Amongst the trees were many verdant clearings covered with varieties of wild shrubs and forest flowers. Crystal waterfalls cascaded onto many-colored rocks. Lakes filled with lotuses and swans shone from the mountain plateaus as the hordes of rakshasas soared overhead. Sometimes the demons would see groups of rishis, ascetic Brahmins who dwelt in those high mountain ranges, practicing austerities and worshipping the gods. They would see the columns of smoke rising up amongst the trees from the sacrificial fires tended by the sages. Using their powers of sorcery, the Rakshasas dropped down volumes of blood, feces, and urine, defiling the sacrifices. They would then hurl huge boulders and blazing coals, crushing and burning the sages where they sat in meditation. Finally, the demons would themselves descend. Howling and roaring, they tore apart the bodies of rishis, drinking their blood and devouring their flesh. Ravana admired the Pushpaka as it proceeded according to his will. His brother Kuvera would be sorry to lose such a splendid vehicle. It looked more like a city of the gods floating in the air than a chariot. Numerous cat's eye and crystal pillars ran along its sides, supporting golden mansions inlaid with coral. Large floors, made entirely of gems, stood upon gold statues of lions and tigers. Groves of artificial trees, shining with golden leaves and fruits, surrounded large ponds, crowded with white lotuses. In those clear ponds stood ivory elephants and silver goddesses. Networks of pearls and wreaths of celestial flowers hung all over that car. It was encrusted with countless precious stones and emblazoned with gold carvings of wolves, sharks, and fierce bears. Sweeping through the skies, it emitted the sound of celestial music and the fragrance of the parijata flower, known only to the gods. As Ravana sat idly aboard the chariot, gazing around at the magnificent scenery below, he suddenly noticed a lady sitting in meditation. This was most unusual. Women were rarely seen in those mountains. Sometimes the rishis would have their wives with them, but this woman seemed to be entirely alone. Ravana slowed the chariot and moved it down to look more closely. Perhaps there were more ascetics nearby. The Rakshasas could use a little entertainment. And if this woman was as beautiful as she seemed at first glance, so could he. Ordering the Rakshasas to wait in the sky, Ravana himself rose up from the chariot and descended to the ground. He saw the young ascetic girl sitting on a flat piece of soft grassland surrounded by wildflowers. She glowed with a golden beauty. Her limbs were exquisitely formed, and her full breasts were covered by a black deerskin. Ravana could see the contours of her tapering thighs through the thin cloth covering her crossed legs. Dark locks of thickly matted hair hung down to her waist, framing her white complexioned face. Her red lips moved slightly as she intoned the sacred syllable Om. Her smooth golden arms were bared in front of her as she sat with folded palms, her long curling lashes covering half-closed eyes. Ravana's mind was overpowered by lust. Who was this youthful lady? What was she doing here in such a lonely place? Did she have a protector? Never mind, he would soon deal with that. The forest was no place for such a maiden. She would make an excellent addition to his other consorts. By his mystic power, Ravana assumed a human form and approached the girl. He spoke loudly, disturbing her reverie. "O most beautiful maiden, who are you? Why are you practicing asceticism in this lonely region? To whom do you belong? What fortunate man has you for his wife?" The demon was unable to resist the charms of women. As he gazed upon the alluring form of the girl, he was possessed by increasing desire. He laughed and waited for her to reply. The girl fully opened her black eyes and looked at Ravana. Seeing him as a guest in her hermitage, she spoke respectfully, telling him her name. She was Vedavati, the daughter of a powerful sage, who was himself a son of the gods, preceptor Brihaspati. Looking down in shyness, she said, "I was born as an incarnation of the holy Vedas. My father was sought by numerous gods and other celestial beings who wished to have my hand in marriage. However, none but Vishnu, the Lord of all the worlds, can be my spouse. Thus I am seated here, absorbed in thought of the Lord and awaiting his favor." Vedavati had meditated for thousands of years. Her body, like that of the gods, neither aged nor required any sustenance. She could understand by her own inner vision who Ravana was and what was his intention. In gentle tones, she said that only Vishnu could be her husband, that inconceivable Lord was all-powerful and all-seeing, and she had chosen him alone. She could not belong to anyone else. Ravana should continue on his way, as before. Ravana laughed again. He was not going to leave behind this jewel of woman. Hearing the name of Vishnu, his sworn enemy, only made him all the more determined. The demon's voice boomed like thunder. Your resolution to practice austerity befits only old women, O lady of shapely limbs. Why do you waste your fleeting youth in this way? I am Ravana, lord of the Rakshasas, the very mighty race of demons. Become my wife and live with me in my capital, Lanka, the golden city I forcibly seized from the demigods. Who is this Vishnu, anyway? Ravana spoke derisively of Vishnu, whom he knew to be the lord of all the gods. The arrogant demon cared nothing for any universal authority. He had been granted boons by Brahma, the creator of the universe, who had so blessed the Rakshasa that he could not be killed by practically any created being, neither gods nor demon. Neither god nor demon. Ravana could assume forms at will. Vedavati's mention of Vishnu did not bother him in the least. He stood smiling before the maiden, his eyes full of lust. Hearing Ravana deride Vishnu, Vedavati flared up with anger and rebuked the demon. She told him to leave immediately for his own good, lest he incite the powerful anger of that supreme deity. Ravana smiled. This high-spirited woman would make a perfect consort for him. He stepped forward and grabbed hold of her long locks. Vedavati at once uttered a powerful Sanskrit mantra which momentarily checked the demon's advance. She lifted a hand and by her mystic power cut through her hair. The Rakshasa fell back in surprise as she spoke furiously. O evil one, I shall now quit this body defiled by your touch. As I've been insulted by you, I shall take birth again only for your destruction. Appearing from the earth, I shall become the pious daughter of a virtuous man. You and your entire race will be destroyed as a result of that birth. Vedavati closed her eyes and meditated upon Vishnu, seeing him within her heart. Before Ravana's eyes, she invoked fire from within herself. Her body was immediately consumed by flames, and in a few moments, Ravana stood looking at her ashes. Baffled by her words, the disappointed demon rose again to his chariot and continued on his way. The demon and his Rakshasa followers spent some time in the Himalayan mountains, wreaking havoc among the many ascetics living there. Gradually they approached the far northern region where there lay Mountain Kailas, the abode of Shiva. As the Pushpaka began crossing that mountain, it was suddenly brought to a halt. Ravana was surprised. Then he descended to the ground, surrounded by his ministers, who accompanied him on the chariot. As he gazed around at the brilliant scenery on the mountainside, he saw a strange being with a monkey's head. The creature appeared dreadful, with a dark yellowish complexion and misshapen features. Although his body was large, he had a dwarfish stature. He was clean-shaven and muscular, and he stood holding a large glowing pike. As he gazed at Ravana, the demon called out to him, "Who are you, and where is this region? Why have I been impeded?" "I am Nandi, the servant of Shiva," replied the unusual being. "You have arrived at Shiva's abode, which is inaccessible to all created beings. You will not be able to pass this mountain, therefore turn back and go the way you have come." Ravana looked at the strange body of Nandi and laughed out loud. He spoke in a derisory voice. "Why should I heed you, O monkey-faced one? Who is this Shiva anyway?" Hearing his master insulted, infuriated, Nandi, raising his pike, which shot forth tongues of fire, he exclaimed, "O Rakshasa, I should kill you at once. But I will not do so, as you already stand killed by your own sins. But I say this, as you disregard me in my monkey form, there shall be born on earth many monkeys of terrible strength who will annihilate your race." As Nandi spoke, the sound of heavenly drums reverberated in the sky, and a shower of flowers fell. Ravana's eyes flamed in anger. Disregarding the curse, he roared, "I shall remove this hill from my path. What do I care for you and your master?" The Rakshasa immediately plunged his 20 massive arms deep into the side of the hill. He began tearing it up, and it slowly rose above the earth, shaking violently. As the hill shook, Shiva's consort, Parvati, slipped from her position and clung to her husband. Shiva reassured her, "Do not be afraid. This is the action of the vain demon, Ravana. I shall deal with him shortly. He cannot harm you." Parvati's eyes turned red as she replied to her powerful husband, "As this wretch has frightened a woman by his violence, his death shall be caused by a woman." Shiva stood up and pressed down upon the hill with his toe. Ravana at once felt an unbearable pressure. His arms, which resembled huge pillars holding the hill, were crushed. He let out a tremendous cry that resounded throughout the three worlds of heaven, earth, and hell, terrifying all beings. He was trapped by the weight of the mountain and could not move. The Rakshasa's ministers at once surrounded him and advised him to appease Shiva. "We have heard how that all-powerful one is easily pleased. Offer him prayers and seek his compassion at once. Certainly he will be gracious to you." Ravana, who had made a study of all the scriptures, began reciting hymns from his Samaveda in glorification of Shiva. But even after 100 years had passed, the Rakshasa still remained trapped. Although in great pain, he continued offering prayers to Shiva. Finally, Shiva relented and relieved Ravana of the pressure. He appeared before the demon and spoke kindly, "O 10-headed one, your prayers have pleased me. Do not be so rash again. Leave now and go wherever you like." Ravana bowed to the god, who stood holding his famous trident. The crescent moon shone from his head, and a large serpent was coiled around his blue neck. He gazed at Ravana with his 3 eyes, as the demon folded his palms to address him. "My lord, if you are actually pleased with me, then please give me your weapon." This is nice. See, this is the prologue. you're getting an opportunity to see who it is that Rama's going to deal with, and what he has to do in order to conquer this guy. Shiva smiled. Ravana's lust for battle would prove to be his destruction before long. Saying, "So be it," Shiva raised his palm in benediction and immediately vanished from that spot. Ravana felt the mantras for invoking Shiva's powerful Pashupata weapon appeared within his mind. He smiled. Who could resist such power? Even he had been unable to overcome Shiva. The great deity was surely worthy of his worship. Ravana mounted the Pushpaka, which had waited in the sky all the time he was trapped, 100 years. Being unable to proceed further to the north, he turned back southwards, still accompanied by his numerous Rakshasa forces. As he moved across the earth, seeking further material engagements, As he moved across the earth, seeking further martial engagements, he came upon the city of Ayodhya. This was the capital of the world of humans. The emperor of the earth dwelt there, and Ravana considered him as fit for a fight. If he conquered this king, then the whole world would be subjugated. Ravana had little interest in human affairs. The Rakshasas were a superior race of beings, more on a level with the gods. But the demon wanted to establish his supremacy over all beings. His army of Rakshasas surrounded the city, challenging the emperor to battle. A fierce fight ensued between the two armies of Ravana and the Ayodhya king, Anaranya. Tens of thousands of chariots and elephants came onto the battlefield, along with hundreds of thousands of foot soldiers. Showers of arrows, like swarms of black bees, fell upon the demons. Anaranya's army threw lances, darts, steel bullets, and iron maces by the millions. They swept towards the enemy, shouting courageously with their weapons raised. Ravana's forces used sorcery to appear and disappear at will, flying in the sky and hurling down rocks and sharp weapons. The king's army replied with showers of swift and deadly arrows. Using powerful catapults, the warriors threw at the Rakshasas large iron darts, which whistled through the air. But Anaranya's fighters could not easily engage with the elusive demons, although they rushed forward, slashing at the enemy with their blue steel swords. The soldiers found themselves cleaving the air as the Rakshasas rose into the sky. The Rakshasas, who towered over their human foes, would then suddenly descend behind the soldiers, cutting them down with razor-sharp scimitars. Gradually the demons overpowered the king's army. The battlefield became strewn with the mangled bodies of Anaranya's troops. Blood flowed in waves upon the ground. Heads rolled on the earth with their golden earrings flashing, and their teeth clenched in fury. Large and well-muscled arms, still clutching broad swords and lances, lay severed amidst the entrails of slain warriors. The demons sent up great shouts as they hacked down the king's army. Anaranya himself exhibited great prowess. He knew the secrets of the celestial weapons, and by invoking those divine missiles, he killed innumerable Rakshasas. When the demons hid using their sorcery, he released the Shabda weapon of sound, which found them wherever they were. as hordes of Rakshasas rushed at the emperor, he let go the wind weapon, which lifted the demons and hurled them far away. Anaranya was difficult to look upon as he stood in his chariot, releasing his weapons. They fell upon the Rakshasa forces like blazing meteors, but the demons far outnumbered the humans. Although hard pressed by the king, the Rakshasas responded with more and more sorcery, vanishing into the sky and entering the earth. Eventually, Ravana's hordes completely annihilated their enemies, and Anaranya stood alone against the demons. Seeing all his forces consumed like so many moths entering a fire, the emperor became infuriated. He went towards Ravana, who had stood by in a war chariot as his Rakshasas fought with the soldiers. Anaranya took up his great bow and let loose 800 fierce arrows, which spread like flames of fire towards Ravana. By the incantations of Anaranya, whose arrows were imbued with the power of thunderbolts, the king fired them so swiftly that they flew in a long line, almost end to end. They struck Ravana furiously on his heads and chest, sounding like claps of thunder, but the demon did not flinch in the least. But the demon did not flinch in the least. Angered by the king's sudden attack, Ravana took up a terrible-looking mace. He whirled it above his head with such force that it glowed bright orange and threw off tongues of fire. He flew with the speed of a tempest towards the emperor and struck him a great blow in the forehead. The king fell from his chariot and lay bleeding on the ground. The Rakshasa began laughing and deriding the fallen monarch. What is the use of fighting with Ravana? There is none who can face me in battle and remain alive. Clearly you are a foolish man, too much addicted to wine and women. Thus you have not heard of my unassailable power. Ravana continued insulting the dying king, mocking his ancestral line in which the earth's emperors had appeared for thousands of years. Anaranya looked upon the demon with eyes red from anger. Gasping for breath as his life slipped away, he spoke with difficulty. I have not been killed by you, O vile Rakshasa. Death is certain and comes to all beings according to their destiny. None can be killed before their fate decrees, nor can any be saved when their time has arrived. I am thus killed by my own fate. Do not indulge in self-praise, Ravana, for your own death will come soon. The emperor possessed mystic power gained by his long practice of austerity. He was loath to waste that accumulated power on Ravana, but the demon had to be checked. The dying king could at least do something before he departed. Anaranya fixed his fading gaze on the Lord of Rakshasas, and concentrating his mind, he uttered a curse. In the very line you now deride, O Ravana, there will soon appear a king who will kill you and all your race. As Anaranya spoke, the sound of kettle drums was heard resounding in the sky, and a shower of celestial flowers fell upon him. Heavenly voices were heard to say, "It shall be so." Having delivered his curse, the emperor slumped to the ground, his life spent. Before the eyes of the demon, Anaranya left his body and rose upwards to the heavens, his ethereal form glowing like fire. Ravana snorted derisively. Who cared for the curse of some puny being? What human could ever kill him? He only bothered fighting with them by way of idle sport. Anaranya's curse was simply the insane words of a dying man. It could never come to pass. If any king dared challenge him, they would meet the same end as this one here. As for the celestial voices, well, he would soon deal with those arrogant deities. Quite a character's study, huh? The demon again mounted the Pushpaka, which was stationed in the sky. Not being interested in pillaging the paltry wealth of a human city, he left and soared up into the heavens. Perhaps there were some gods around who could put up a better fight. I'm going to stop here so that Abhaya could get to bed at a reasonable time. Is it okay?
Unless you want to keep going.
Is it too late?
No.
I'll stop here. This is good. It's going one thing after another, and the next thing is going to take a little time, so we'll stop here. And I'll leave my place so that we can come back to the same place.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Ravana. The real demon.
Yeah.
The real powerful demon. Only Rama could kill him.
Getting cursed by everybody.
Yeah. And particularly for each little, everything's providential. Wonderfully written by Krishna Dharma. Wonderfully written. I have so much respect for him. Okay, that's it, gentlemen. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai.
Jai Ram.